All right. Well, welcome everyone. We are so excited. We have Rachel Clemens today, and we're going to be talking about measuring your marketing effectiveness. Now, this is something that's near and dear to my heart. So I am over the moon to learn more because I feel like we can always learn more, right? And Rachel's going to share some really great insights with us today. Hi, Rachel. How you doing?
Good, Josh. How are you?
Good. How's it? No, you're in Austin. Is that right?
I'm in Austin where it's still hot.
It's still hot, and I am in the Bay Area where it's always 65 degrees, which is really lovely. Although sometimes I wish it was a little bit warmer, but
Rub it in.
yeah, mostly, yeah, it'll be fine. It's it's all good. Well, let's see who we have on the line with us today. So if you can open your chat box there and go ahead and tell us where you're from. Let us know your city, your state, and what organization you're with. And you can go ahead and put that in the webinar chat box. We'd love to hear from you all. Oh, look what we got. Center for People in Need in Lincoln, Nebraska. Eileen. Hi, Eileen. How are you? Who else we got there? Someone from Florida. Oh, Florida.
Florida.
Yeah, I know. Florida. We're rooting for y'all. Canton, Ohio. All right. Idaho, Coeur d'Alene. Another Nebraska. A lot of Nebraska. Brooklyn, New York. The Airway Revolution. This is fantastic. So do we have anyone from Texas? Where are the other Texas folks?
I don't know. Usually there's one or two. Hey, Jenny's from Texas.
Janine, Dallas. All right. Awesome.
The big city.
Sioux Center, Iowa. All right. We have like a lot of representation here. California, Oakland. All right. So Jesse's on the other side of the bay from me. Hi, Jesse. All right. Who else do we got there? Rachel?
New Haven, Connecticut, Michigan. All over the place. I love it. So fun.
North Dakota, a lot in the heartland. A lot.
Yeah, there's a lot.
That's fantastic. Tennessee, Northeast. All right. Hi, Holly. How you doing? Well, listen, it is 11:01 here in California, which I believe, if I can do my math right, does that mean it's like 2:01 on the East Coast? I think it's 2:01 on the East Coast. So let's get going. Rachel has a ton of really good content, so I want to make sure that she has all the time she needs to share this amazing content with us today. So I'm going to go ahead. We have a couple housekeeping things. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone this presentation is being recorded and we're going to send the recording out to y'all. So if you want to take notes, feel free to do so, but know that you'll have access to this recording. We'll probably get it out to you later today, but at the latest, early tomorrow morning. If you would like to chat, if you have sort of general questions, you want to chat amongst yourselves, please use that chat function in the Zoom control panel. But for questions, so if you have specific questions for Rachel, and I'm sure you will, and she is happy to take them, use the Q&A module in the Zoom panel, right? So that we can keep those separate from just the general chat. So that's the Q&A section for questions. All right. And with that, for those of you I haven't met, my name is Joshua Meyer. I am a VP of Marketing over at Bloomerang. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with Bloomerang, Bloomerang is a donor management and online fundraising solution. We would love to find some time to chat with you if you are in the market or you're looking to try and figure out how can I use all this data on my donors and better increase my retention rate, or just better communicate and organize your donors. We would love to have the opportunity. There's a URL on the bottom there, bloomerang.co/demo. And let's see, did it make it in here? We are running a promotion because it is, we all know it's like end of the year. We're starting to edge into that. So we are gonna, this is our end of the year promotion. But if you buy now, and actually you won't have your first payment with Bloomerang until 2023, so in January of 2023 at the earliest. So it's a really great opportunity to get things set up. I know we all have goals for 2023. If one of your goals is trying to get your data and trying to get your donor management in a better place, this is a really great opportunity. There is a URL here. You will have this full recording. I will drop this URL in here once I hand this over to Rachel. But enough about Bloomerang. And it is now my pleasure to hand it over to Rachel Clemens. Rachel, CMO of Mighty Citizen, take it away. So what I got to do now is I got to stop sharing, right? And stop talking.
Hush, hush, Josh. All right, here we go.
Right.
Bear with me just one second. this into view here. Oh, goodness.
Whoop,
What have I
yep.
done?
Yeah.
All right, hang on, hang on. I'm in full screen and that always messes me up.
I'll flip it
Let's try that
over.
again. Hey, all right, here we go. And now I'll go into full screen. So it's nice and beautiful because that's something I care about. All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for your patience. Today, we're going to talk about what I like to call the Sasquatch of the marketing world. You can say it's the abominable snowman, the Loch Ness monster, however you choose. It's that thing that we hear might be out there, but we haven't quite found it, or it feels very elusive. And that means we're talking about marketing effectiveness. Now, here at Mighty Citizen, we see a direct correlation between how effective your marketing is and how mature it is. So today we're going to talk about measuring your marketing effectiveness. How mature is your marketing? And I'll explain that correlation in a little bit more detail as we go. I am Rachel Clemens. I'm CMO at Mighty Citizen. If you're not familiar with Mighty Citizen, we're the branding, marketing, and digital agency for mission-driven organizations. That means we help our clients increase their revenue, build their awareness, and better their communities through things like branding, messaging, campaigns, websites, pretty much anything communications related. I do have 20 plus years of communications. This photo was probably taken when I had about 10 years. You can see the whole thing has changed. And my strength is communications, and my weakness is pumpkin chai lattes. And 'tis the season. So if you're with me, you know, right there with you. By the end of the session today, you'll be able to understand the value of marketing effectiveness, you know, how effectively we are marketing to our audiences, measure your own marketing effectiveness, and take steps to further your marketing effectiveness. Now, I want to say up front, this session is mostly about marketing and how to know if what you're doing is working. Obviously, I'm willing to bet there's a lot of fundraisers in attendance today. And what I want to say to y'all, you fundraisers out there, is that for the most part, fundraising, in my opinion, is marketing. It's your website, it's your digital efforts that you undertake, it's the content you're putting out into the world. So if you're thinking this isn't for me, and I encourage you to stick around. And of course, we also know that at many nonprofits, the head of fundraising is also the head of marketing. They're often combined, right? So to get into it, effectiveness, we know, can be hard to measure. I want to kick us off with a poll right up here at the outset. Do you know how effective your marketing is overall? And your options are going to be yes, no, and I'm afraid to say. Sarah, do we have the poll up?
Let's see here. I think Sarah's pulling it up.
Okay, I was gonna say, I don't see it. If it's up, that's fine, but I don't see it. Now,
There it is.
we lost Sarah.
We did. Would you like to learn more about today's speakers? That's the one, right? No, that's not it. Okay, hold on. I can figure this out. Question one, do you know your effectiveness, right? Rachel,
Yeah.
that's all right, let me launch it. I'm not sure
Thank
what happened
you.
with Sarah, but there we
There we
go.
go.
Yep.
Okay, do you know how effective your marketing is? Yes, no, or I'm afraid to say is a totally fair answer. It is anonymous. So if, you know, don't feel like if your answer is no, you're going to be called out or anything like that. Josh, are you seeing any of the results coming through?
I am. I'm sorry that it sounds like you can't, but I can. Let's see here. We got about 60, 70% here. Let's see if we can get 75, maybe. All right. I'll go ahead and end it and then share it.
Yeah,
So
please.
All right. So let's go ahead and do that and end it.
We can
and
all
then
kind of
share
see
the
what we're
results
seeing.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is not a surprise. I've given this session a few times and it's almost never yes, right? Because again, it's Sasquatch. So I'll close this because I think I can do that. There we go.
Okay, great, yeah.
Yeah, in good company. And there's a lot of reasons that it's hard to measure effectiveness. When you're measuring anything, of course, there's quantitative measurement and there's qualitative. So we all love quantitative, things that are numbers based and metrics based. And we're investing a lot of money in tech to give us that quantitative data. There's a lot more technology out there, things that are actually letting us track this stuff in a way we've never been able to track before. But of course, there's still a lot of challenges around that. So this slide is from Deloitte's brand marketing effectiveness study. And it shows that marketers still struggle with lots of things, trusting their data, being able to effectively measure the things they really want to measure. You might have lots of numbers at your fingertip, but are they the things that actually matter? Knowing what to measure. So there's a lot of this, right? So that's the quantitative picture. And by the way, quantitative only measures online and digital things because they're things we can track. But a lot of marketing and a lot of fundraising happens offline as well, of course. So, we have quantitative data, then there's qualitative data, which often equates to like gut instinct and opinion. So if you ask someone, does your marketing work? I mean, sure, I'm going to say it works. I'm a marketer. And I believe in my skills, but unless you have fairly sophisticated tech in place, the answer is often based on your own opinion or the opinion of others around you. And even with sophisticated tech, again, those efforts happen online. So if the question is hard to answer, is your marketing working? I'm going to give you a method today to answer that, but you can go ahead and ask yourself, what is working? And if you know the answer to that, you can do more of what's working and ask yourself what isn't working and try to really put your efforts somewhere else. So I want to acknowledge up front that to really uncover your marketing effectiveness is to be vulnerable. I'm going to give you some opportunities for ways to find the areas where your marketing is really working and some opportunity to find the areas where you need some improvement. And so it can be really vulnerable to look for those areas. So I'm with you on that. But it is important to know because when you understand your effectiveness, you can really do those things that are working well for you and basically make your resources go further, which for all of us in the mission-driven space is really important. Okay, here's why it matters. I always like to cover this in a session, but it allows you to capitalize on what's working. As I said, do more of what's working. It's working for you. It also uncovers low-hanging fruit. There may be some things that you find out that you are not doing that would actually be a pretty easy lift. And so it's going to help you uncover those things. It's going to help you save time and money. If you find out that something you're doing isn't working and it doesn't really need to work, like there may be areas where you say, it's okay if we aren't as strong in that area. It can allow you to stop putting so much emphasis in those areas and save that time and money. It shows you how to augment your team. What's great about this is if you're in an organization where you're growing your team or you really want to make an effort to get more people on board, then knowing where your opportunities for strength lie, and if that's not your strength, it means you need to hire somebody with those strengths. It helps you understand your return on investment. For every nonprofit out there, they want to spend $1 and return over $1. That's important. And so this is going to help you understand where the money you're putting in, where you're getting that return. And then lastly, it helps you ask for those investments where they're needed. And we're going to talk more about, convincing people to make the investments in those areas where it's needed. So how do you measure it? This is a great question. At Mighty Citizen, and me personally, I've been asking myself this question for years. There's also the fact that we've been trying to help our clients answer this question. For them, they're spending money with us. And so we want to help them see that it's working and not always even for those things that aren't trackable in terms of metrics, right? Even for the data that's not quantifiable. And then we also want to show progress to leadership. So for our clients and for even my own work within Mighty Citizen, I want to be able to show our leadership, hey, our marketing is working and here's how I know it. So we set out to answer that question. And we, in February this year, we launched something called the Mighty GPS. It is a free, I want to emphasize it's free, does not cost anything, self-assessment to measure your own marketing maturity. It takes less than 10 minutes. Our data is showing it takes about 6 minutes for people to walk through. And I just want to note here, by the way, I've got the URL there for later to go through and see that. I want to note here that we're not talking about organizational maturity when we talk about marketing maturity. You can have a mature organization, an organization that's been around for a really long time that is not effective in terms of its marketing, and vice versa. You can have a really young organization that is scrappy and very efficient. So just know that marketing maturity does not equate necessarily to organizational maturity. I also want to emphasize that this tool is free. I mentioned that. Our MO at Mighty Citizen is to give away our knowledge, help nonprofits do the work to further their marketing maturity themselves. So everything I'm going to point you to today, you can do yourself. You do not need to hire an agency to do it. If you get stuck, you can feel free to reach out, but truly, I want to give you the tools to find your effectiveness and then to improve it. So before we launched in February, I've been working on this project for a really long time. It's been close and dear to my heart because I want to solve it. I want to answer it. want to know my own marketing effectiveness. And so I gathered the team at my assist, and I pulled in people from each of our disciplines, and I asked them, what are the questions that, you feel like we need to know in order to tell an organization how effective their marketing is. So we pulled all those questions together. We developed a survey. We tested it, did some user testing with clients and friends, and that's the group you see here. Got some feedback, realized I needed to revise the scoring a little bit and some of the questions. Then we beta launched in November. And so we had a few more people take it before we fully launched in February. It has been live, I guess it's been about 6 months now, well, 7 months. And we are definitely looking for feedback. So if you complete it and get your score and something feels off, please tell me. Marketing is constantly iterating, and that means where it's not set it and forget it. So please let me know any feedback that you have. The GPS, the Mighty GPS, measures 6 categories of marketing across 4 stages. Often what you'll see with these marketing maturity scales or indexes, they're not uncommon that people will say, oh, measure your digital marketing effectiveness or measure this kind of effectiveness. What we found is that nobody is measuring it across all the kind of key elements of marketing. And so we broke it down into 6 key categories. That includes, well, I'll go into them in a minute so you can read them too. But so there's 6 key categories, and we're measuring across 4 stages. And I'm going to go into each one of these in a little bit more detail, but this is sort of what you need to know about the tool itself. Measures 6 categories and puts you in 1 of 4 stages. It's really important to take them, if possible, to take the Mighty GPS with your team. So a lot of you are probably fundraisers as well as marketers. And so even if you are not a marketer, you can take the Mighty GPS. As long as you can answer, enough about the communications happening within your organization, you can answer the questions that are in it. If you're at a large nonprofit or nonprofit where you maybe have a separate events team or a separate technology team, you can also ask them to complete the GPS. And the reason for that is it's going to show when multiple people at the same organization take it, it shows whether you have internal alignment and agreement on the current state of play, right? So if one of you takes the Mighty GPS and gets a 62, and we'll go into scoring in a minute, and one of you takes it and gets a 42, that's a pretty big gap and difference in how you see your communications. And so just having those scores and sitting down and looking at them can help you figure out, where you really lie and where your opportunities are. This can also be a great tool for getting new hires onboarded. So we are hiring, we have a new person joining our team on Monday. On her second day of the job, I'm going to have her take the GPS based on her outsider view and just see where she would score us. She's been following us for a while, so I'm kind of curious to see what she sees. But it does help with kind of getting new people on board, seeing what they see, and then having them look at the results in order to kind of get them onboarded. Okay, those 6 marketing categories, I'm going to go through these really quickly. The first one's research and analytics. So it's going to ask you questions. There's about 6 to 8 questions in each category. Again, the whole thing takes about 6 or 7 minutes, but it's going to ask you questions like, do you understand your audiences? Are you using analytics to further your insight? And by the way, for almost every one of these questions, we also offer a little tooltip. So if you're not sure what something is, don't be intimidated. Again, we want to walk you through it and help you understand. The next one's branding and strategy. Do you have guidelines in place for consistent messaging and branding? And do you have written, notice written is emphasized, plans for how you communicate with your audiences? It's really important that your planning is written down so you can refer back to it later and know if you are successful. So those little things make a difference in terms of effectiveness. And as far as branding goes, we all know that half of the branding job is really just consistency, says a former designer, right? It's all about keeping to those guidelines. The third stage is marketing and SEO. Have you established key goals and shared those with leadership? And do you use search engine optimization to drive traffic to your website? I'll mention search engine optimization in a moment as well. UX design and content is our 4th category. Ask questions about your content in general. Do you plan your content to meet your audience needs? Does your website support your strategic goals? And then technology is our 5th one. Is your website easy to update and maintain, or is it a problem for your staff where they're spending way too much time dealing just with manual nature, the annoyances of technology, and do your different platforms integrate seamlessly. I'm sure many of you have a donor platform, and that donor platform may also drive your website, or it might be a different platform entirely. Are those two platforms integrated to where they're not getting in each other's way? It's a seamless experience for your user and for your internal stakeholders. And the last category is team dynamics. Questions here include, does your internal team represent a variety of skills? Does leadership believe in the power of marketing? We actually had 5 categories and added this one because one of the things we have seen over the years is that you can have a really, you can have an organization that has all the right things in place. They have the right tactics, they've got a decent budget, but if your team dynamics are not right, or something is out of alignment, or you don't have the support of leadership, that can truly get in your way in terms of effectiveness. So we added the team dynamics as our 6th category. From those 6 categories, you're going to get an overall marketing maturity score on a scale of 0 to 100. 100 being, you're on point with your marketing effectiveness and your maturity, and 0 being, well, certainly you need some help. That's your marketing maturity score. And it breaks down into those 4 stages. So the first 39 points are for crawling, and then 40 to 59% is walking, 60 to 80 is running, and soaring is 81 to 100. I can tell you there are very few that are in soaring. Anyway, all that to say, I'm going to get into the data we've seen so far because I think that's really fascinating. But I do want to note that many of you right now, but without even taking the Mighty GPS, could probably put yourself on a 0 to 100 scale in terms of your organization's marketing maturity. So I want to ask you right now, and this is another poll, Josh, what stage of marketing maturity do you think you're in? And so, crawling is an option, walking, running, soaring, or yeah, so those are your 4 options. And we'll give you a minute while you're going through that. Just because there aren't a lot of people who choose soaring doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There are some organizations we have seen so far that have scored soaring, but it, of course, is hard to reach that one. Josh, are we getting some in?
We are, and I was on mute. We had, just while we're waiting for that poll to come in, we had 2 technical questions on like nomenclature. Someone asked, what is NEO and what is SEO and what is UX design? I think those are
okay.
ones that you can probably answer. And then
thank you so much for asking that. Okay, SEO is search engine optimization, and at its core, you know how when you go to Google and you're looking for something like you might search for website design. When you type that into Google, it's going to serve you up results. And SEO is the practice of making sure you show up in those results. And ideally, the higher, the better, right? That's search engine optimization. UX design is user experience design, and it is designing for your end user in mind. So if you're designing a website, it's thinking about how does the average user or particular type of user what do they want to do on the site? How do they want to get to that content? How do you want to further them down in your marketing funnel?
Great, really great. Yeah, that's perfect. Let's go ahead and there we go. We can share the results there.
All right. Okay, also very common. I hope I didn't steer anyone away from saying soaring. If that was your first inclination, we'll find out in a minute. But yeah, most people find themselves in walking. This actually holds up in the data as well. And then crawling and then running. So let's, I'm going to walk through each of one of these in a little bit of detail, pretty high level. And just as we're going through, think about where you scored your organization and think about if that still holds up when I show you examples of kind of where people sit within each of those stages. Okay. So I do have to say up front that there are some generalizations in here. So not every single thing I show you, if you think you're in walking, not every single thing I show you in walking regarding challenges and next steps are going to apply to you, because we're talking about a lot of organizations, every organization is different and unique. So, but generally, in general, if you feel like that's where you belong, those things should ring true. So just know that not every little thing is going to line up. Okay, so if you think you're in crawling, and when we talk about crawling is really about focusing on fundamentals. Do not despair if you were in crawling. I know that's easy to kind of go, at the very basic bottom. Do not despair about that, because truly, if you look at it the right way, Crawling is really a great stage to be in because there's tons of opportunity. You can make huge, impactful changes at your organization. And some of the things you can do pretty quickly in order to make those changes. You can move in a lot of different directions. So it's really about just getting back to those basics and those fundamentals that truly a lot of organizations want to skip over. So some of the common challenges within crawling are a limited budget, a limited buy-in from your leadership in terms of the value of communications and marketing. Oftentimes, these organizations lack resources, whether that's time or money. They often do not have concrete goals. They say, oh, we want to increase donors, but they don't set metrics around that, or they don't say, and here's how we'll do it. And there's a written plan around that. So no concrete goals. And then these organizations are often reactive versus proactive. What they see as next step, or we see as next steps often for crawling organizations, is to do some surveying of your audiences, understand them better. I'm going to share data with you guys around this, the first set of questions around research and analytics. And what we find is organizations just do not understand their audiences enough. They're not asking enough questions of their audiences to make sure they understand them. Starting there helps everything else. So surveying audiences, establishing your guidelines, again, consistency, it's fundamental, it's basic, but is so important. Make sure that everyone in your organization is saying the same thing. Creating a budget and a plan, and so a written plan, and then setting those measurable goals. So that's crawling. Walking, where most of you think you are, is really about establishing your full competence. So you've got those fundamentals in place. You're doing a lot of things well, and it's just about, pushing yourself beyond. The great news here is that the bones are there. But again, you want to know that the work you're doing and you're putting in is paying off. So common challenges are a lack of urgency. Truly, what you're doing enough things pretty well that it can be hard to kind of push into what's next. Decisions are often driven by gut because, again, there's not that underlying understanding of our audiences. We haven't asked them enough about themselves. Old or clunky technologies, often here your website technology or your donor technology is getting in your way. The user experience on your website is passable, but subpar. So it could be much better. That means things like it takes a long time to get through your donation or to get through your donation form, things like that. Again, these orgs tend to be more reactive than proactive. Next steps include optimizing your Google Analytics, making sure you can see what's happening on your website and ask important questions and get those answers. Honing your messaging. Again, people saying the same thing in the same way over and over again. Prioritizing your user experience and implementing new technology. Now, again, you might say, Rachel, I thought I was in walking, but my Google Analytics, man, we are on it. We have got it down. We're ready for Google Analytics 4 that's coming next summer. Again, generalizations that may be true for you, but I would be willing to bet the other things are applicable. By the way, if you are a marketing team of one that is in walking, I want you to literally pat yourself on the back right this minute because you're doing a lot of work. Walking is not, it's up and going, it's moving, and it's hard to be a person of one or a team of one doing this all on your own. The running stage is all about optimizing infrastructure and making the most of what's working for you. So you're looking for opportunities to go deeper, to increase your efficiency, and to optimize what's already in place. So common challenges are that knowledge has hit its limits. Running, you're doing pretty good when you're in running. And so that means you're doing a lot of things well, but we all have our limits. Absolutely. For me, I'm really steeped in brand and messaging, but I could not set up a Google ad or a Facebook ad to save my life. And that's okay. I can hire other people to do it. But what I mean here is that it's really hard to keep up with everything that's happening. And you're just going to run into some barriers once you start getting up and firing real good. There's no real impetus to change. Again, things are going, they're humming along. Unless there's something to motivate you or, some imperative that's really pushing you, it can be hard to step it up. Research efforts are often light, so they're often happening for organizations that are in the running stage, but they are often kind of, surface level or not happening frequently enough. Your tech has a lot of unused features, so you might have latest technology, but you're only using 20% of it when you could really be benefiting from more of it. And then often strategies are built on built on ideas that are 2 or 3 years old. So again, keeping up and just continuing to push. Next steps for the running stage is all about diving deeper into research, auditing your content and your user experience. So if you're in the running stage, you probably have a bit of a team, you know, and you are producing a lot of content. We see this all the time. Organizations are creating things that are driving people to their site or to their organization. And that means that you've probably got a lot of content sitting on your website, and it might just be time to go in there and clean it out, make it easier for people to find what they're looking for, those sort of things. Testing is really important, A/B testing here. So again, optimizing and assessing your data security and your privacy practices. So these things are becoming more and more important. New laws are being passed every day around privacy. So it's really important that, you know, organizations that are running make time to get those things in line. And then soaring is all about experimenting and influencing. So they're going to be really scouring their organization to reach those new levels of success and really sharing what they've learned with their peers and those inside and outside their organization. So their challenges are, you know, when you're soaring, you've got big ideas, but that demands big money. Content governance, which is the process of, it's basically a process where you have rules for how you create content, edit content, distribute content, publish content, manage content, archive content. It's for really big organizations that have a lot of different departments and a lot of content. It can be hard to share project nuances with leadership and making sure that they really get the messages you want them to get. And then, of course, scalability is huge. If your marketing team is up and soaring and firing, how can you take some ideas and help the rest of the organization to be functioning at the same level? Next steps, again, are testing, iterating on and on, implementing content governance, iterating on new technologies. So again, it's never set and forget it. These teams are just constantly improving on what they've got, keeping that stuff going while getting out new ideas. You're often coaching your team, and I would say those outside of your organization. You're speaking at conferences and helping other people to improve their skills. And then lastly, seeking new ideas. When you are in soaring, you are in your organization, you know it really well, but you're often at that 3,000-foot view because you're in it. It can be really helpful to seek new ideas from new hires or partners or whatever that looks like that can have that 30,000-foot view. I want to share some data. I'm sure some of you are really curious about the data we're seeing so far. So the great thing about the Mighty GPS is that we're collecting information from mission-driven organizations all over the country, well, the world, but mostly in the US. And we had 194 participants that were nonprofits between February and August. So this data comes through August. And we saw that the majority of our scores are between 35 and 79. It's probably not super surprising, but what it does say is that they're in that crawling, walking, and running stage. So exactly where you guys put yourselves, that is not at all surprising. In fact, the walking stage is the most popular, and that is where most people land. And so that lines up with what we saw in the poll as well. Marketing budgets for organizations that are spending over 50,000 are seeing increased marketing effectiveness. So I gave you those 6 categories. Across each of those categories, your score will improve by 5 to 10% across each one of those categories if you're spending at least 50,000 a year. That number actually decreases slightly when you're spending over 100,000 a year. So the sweet spot that we have seen so far in the data is organizations that are spending between 50,000 and 100,000 a year. And by spending, I mean just marketing spend, not salaries, but just spending in different places and whatever that looks like. So I think the reason for that, this is my own conjecture, I don't have quantitative data around this yet, but I think that the reason for that is when you're spending between 50 and 100,000, you've got enough to kind of be fired up and be resourceful, but you don't have so much that you've still got to be really tight with it, right? And so I think that's why we're seeing that. So if you're spending over 100,000, if you're one of those big lucky organizations, just be really mindful of where that money is going and know where it's effective. The other thing I want to say here is certainly not every organization is spending $50,000. For some of you, you were like, oh my gosh, that is impossible. That will never happen. I just want to note here that the Mighty GPS, I've had people ask me like, is it built for big orgs with big orgs in mind? It was not. While there's a correlation between spending more money and seeing more maturity, that is not always the case. It's only a 5 or 10 point difference. So there is a difference there, but it is not drastic. So don't let these numbers scare you. You can be spending less than $50,000 a year and still be super effective. You just have to be very resourceful. I've spoken with a friend of the agency. They run a 7-person association, and I'm going to show the results in a minute, but they have fired up and they are small. They are not spending anywhere near $50,000 a year. I'll show you the results. I'll remind you of this, but just know, I know that can be intimidating. That is not necessarily the case. Research and analytics is by far the lowest scoring category, by far. I'm going to show you numbers here in a minute, but this is the place where every organization really needs to put more emphasis. Again, when you spend more time understanding your audiences, that helps everything. It helps your content. It helps you know what technology is needed. It helps you understand their user experience on your website. Those things all matter. Helps you know where to reach them in terms of marketing. It's going to make you more effective across the board. And then team dynamics ranks highest. You could argue there's some bias here because in some ways, when you're filling out the Mighty GPS in the team dynamics section, you're kind of rating yourself and your teammates and maybe some people you hired. But I do think that that's heartening. Like, we believe in our teams, and that means that we're seeing sufficient budgets and really having buy-in from our leadership. And then that's often followed by branding and strategy. So if you're curious about the average across those 194 nonprofits, most of them, again, are crawling in the research and analytics stage, but they're walking in all the other stages. So again, you can see team is at 69%, followed by branding and strategy at 65%. Okay, so what happens? Okay, I get my score. Now what? So you guys are going to get a score. You're also going to get a stage. So this example is from a large nonprofit. They were in the walking stage with a score of 55%. You're also going to get your score for each of the 6 categories. So you're going to be able to see at a glance, we're doing really well here, we're not doing so well here. Now, again, I mentioned that this is a large nonprofit. They have high name recognition. If I said their name, you would know them. Their branding and strategy score is nearly off the charts. It's at like 95%. That makes total sense. But you'll see, even a really large and well-funded nonprofit has areas where they are hurting. And we'll talk more about that. You're then going to get a report, and it's going to give you, again, your score and your stage for each of those categories. And then it's going to give you next steps for each category as well. So there's 5 or 6 next steps in there to say, hey, you were in crawling for research and analytics. Here's some things you can do to take that score further. And you can use that report to do a lot of things. One, it's going to spark conversations within your marketing department. If you're more than one, a team of 1, talk to the other people, get them to take it as well, and see where you agree and don't agree. It will help you build your case internally. It's really helpful to take data to your leadership and say, hey, we're scoring here, and that either makes sense or doesn't make sense. But if we had more investment, we think we could do more here, and here's what that would look like. It's going to help you prioritize. We'll talk more about that. You can check back later and see how your score has changed. And then also you can get expert advice. We have those free resources that come in that report as well. I'm going to show you how you can put that report in action. I think the challenge with something like this is you get that number, you have some feeling about that number. Either it's like, we're doing pretty good, or like, oh boy, I got some work to do. But then you're also going to get a report, and that report is going to have 5 or 6 things for each of your categories. It can feel overwhelming. I think that is absolutely true. So we developed this thing called the Mighty GPS Get Started Planner. It's a template. I'll show you a capture of it in a minute, but it's going to help you walk through and answer, where do I start? I think that's the hardest part. I don't know about y'all, but I'll take these surveys, I'll get the results, and then I won't ever touch them again. So we really want to make sure that you have the means to like do something with it, because that's where the success lies. So again, this will be linked when you get your results as well, so you can grab that. Okay, so where do you start? We're going to use that same example we were looking at before. So they're walking and they're at 55%. You see that they're like this with their categories. Some organizations will see a more flat line across the categories, and it can be a little harder to decide where to start. But this org clearly has two places, research and analytics and UX, user experience design and content, where, they might want to give some emphasis. I think for most organizations, research is important. We don't give it enough attention. Again, it can affect and infect everything. So that might be an area for them. And also UX design and content for a big org, you expect them to have their stuff down. Like if you're going to donate to them, that experience will be super easy. You have high expectations. So they may want to look at that as well. And of course, it's easy to look at this chart and go, those are two areas where we need help. The other thing to do here, you may see an area where you need help and you know that help is coming, but it's down the road. Or I would encourage you to also analyze, do I really need to put a lot of emphasis here? I'll give you an example. At Mighty Citizen, when we take this for ourselves, one area that's lower is marketing and SEO. And I'll remind you, SEO is search engine optimization. We put SEO takes time. It takes time to show up in those search results and to do that work. We spent a lot of time a couple of years ago really doing that. With every article we publish, we spent a lot of time putting in keywords that would help us rank higher. At the end of last year, when we were planning for this year, I said, I don't know if that's paying off. It's taken a lot of time, super painful. We don't enjoy it. We just want to be able to write. Let's spend 2022 not doing that and see what that looks like. So our score for marketing and SEO is lower than it might be if we were still doing SEO. And we're in the process right now, it's at the end of the year, to figure out how that's affecting us. I can tell you my gut says it's not affecting us that much. So, but I'm going to get the data and we're going to see, do we need to bring it back in 2023? Or are we good and we continue not worrying too much, deciding not to put an emphasis there, because everything has a cost and time, effort attached to it. And so for us, I just choose right now to put effort in other places. So you may have a low scoring category and go, that's okay. That is by design. I see someone asked in the questions, how much does a survey assessment and report cost? Absolutely free. The URL is themightygps.com. Go take it. We're going to know you took it because we're going to have your results, and I'll show you how we're using that later. But absolutely free. Okay, so this organization says these are the two areas we might want to put some attention to. They're going to look at their report. They're going to see, okay, I'm going to go with research and analytics because I know that affects everything else. They're going to see, I've got a few ways I could go here with my next steps. I'm going to identify a few of those to get started with. So I'm always going to recommend that you choose, when you're thinking about any plan or any campaign or anything you're doing, choose no more than 3 things to focus on. 3 is the absolute max. You can have 1. You're going to know how much room and time your organization has. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Don't try to do too much. Don't go, I'm going to do every single one of these things in the next 3 to 6 months. You're just going to set yourself up for disaster. It's really hard to do that with everything else we have to do. Just choose 1 to 3 things to focus on. So this organization says, all right, I'm going to do some audience research. I'm going to survey as part of that. And then after I have that information, I'm going to build out some audience personas because that's going to set me up for success in that user experience and content section where I also need some help. So they're going to click on those links. For example, when you click on the user research link, it takes you here to an article we have called 3 Homegrown User Research Techniques and How to Do Them Right. Tells you how to do it. You can do it on your own. Again, it does not require a lot of money for these things. And then you can also use that Get Started Planner. So for example, if this organization said, I know I want to do those 3 things, I don't know what to do next. This is where the Get Started Planner comes in place. You're going to download it. It's a template. It's going to say, what's your number 1 goal? Well, this organization might say, I want to learn about my audiences because we have a new program launch coming up. It's then going to ask you, okay, what activities do you need to do in order to learn about your audiences? Well, I need to do some internal and external interviews. Maybe I need to survey some audiences. You're going to list out those things. It's going to walk you through it. It's got examples built in. It's going to ask you, what's the measurable metric for this activity? Well, I need to conduct 10 interviews. That's how many I've decided to do. That's what the article recommended. I'm going to go do that. What tactics need to happen? What's the timeline on those? How I'll put that activity into action. So what are you going to do once you've got this audience research? I'm going to use it to inform content and other things, to build personas from it. And then what's your budget? So again, this tool is here to help you go, okay, what next? All right, what's next for the Mighty GPS? I kind of alluded to this. You can benchmark yourself. So you can take the Mighty GPS. We're recommending every 6 months to a year. Depends on how big your team is and how fast you can actually move. Mighty Citizen, my team at Mighty Citizen is a small, scrappy marketing team. We're going to need 12 months to see real progress. So we're going to, take it every 12 months for us. If you have an org that moves quick and you're scrappy and you can go, take it every 6 months. Hang on to your reports. We do save them. We save the last 3, but you want to hang on to those so that you have them the next time you take it. You can look back and go, okay, this is how I did 6 months, 12 months ago, and here's what I'm doing now. You'll be able to show progress in a way you haven't been able to do before. That is really important, especially when you're talking to leadership, potentially asking for more money. So that org, I mentioned to you guys an organization, they have 7 people. 1 person doing the marketing, and they are, I believe they're like a $4 million organization. So they're not huge. They're not tiny, but they're also not huge. And they're the ones that are not spending $50,000 a year. And they were among the beta testers for us. So they took the GPS back in November 2021, and then we had them take it again this month. And this is the difference in their score. So they went from a 43% walking to a 67% running. They saw an improvement of 24% on their marketing maturity score, and they jumped a stage. And this is what we're hoping will happen for you guys too. You'll find out where you are today. You'll make some changes to really improve your marketing effectiveness, and you'll see the results a year from now. Now they are super serious. The CEO believes in the power of marketing. She's a former marketer. So your mileage may vary, but this was really impressive, and just kind of highlights what could happen. I wanted to share with you too what their charts look like. I thought that might be interesting. So you'll notice that they increased across all of research and analytics, branding and strategy, marketing and SEO. One of the things they did was when they first took the GPS back in November, they did not have a dedicated marketing person. CEO was doing some of it, somebody else was doing some of it. In the time frame, they dedicated one of their current employees to solely marketing. So that's a responsibility of that number jumping. You'll see again, almost all of these increased. Technology actually dropped. When I asked them about this, they said, well, we needed new technology a year ago. We haven't done anything. We still need new technology. It's a little worse than it was a year ago. So they decided that was not something they were going to put an emphasis in over the last, they have not spent anything on their technology or any changes over the last year. And of course, team dynamics, I think that's really driven by that new employee to head it up. We do have future plans for the Mighty GPS. So, when you fill it out, not only are you helping yourself to understand your marketing effectiveness, you're also helping us to understand the marketplace. So, we have 200 plus at this point nonprofits that have taken it. Our goal is to publish a report or an infographic potentially next year that says, hey, nonprofits, here's where your peers are sitting. So at first it will be a report that rolls out. Eventually, I want to be able to have you guys say, hey, I'm an organization that my revenue is between 5 and 10 million, and I spend 50 to 100,000 a year. And this is my score. And here's how I compare to my peers that are also in those same categories. So the goal is that eventually you will be able to see really not only your scores, but how that benchmarks against your peers in the similar space. So action items for you: measure your marketing effectiveness by taking the GPS, review that custom report, including your overall score and stage, Based on those things, decide what areas you're going to focus on and use the resources provided in that report. We give you everything we think you need to do it, and just go at it and get it done, and then track your progress by taking the assessment again. I'm going to cover some quick FAQs. I always get the same questions, so I figure I'll just go ahead and cover them, and then we'll get to any other questions you might have, or if you want me to expand on anything here. Number one question I get, what if I don't have a large budget to implement these changes? Again, I want to emphasize that many of these recommendations don't require budget, but they do require time. So for example, if you know you need to, one of the things is brand name strategy, and you go, oh, well, I know that's our messaging. We do not have our messaging down. It's not fundamental, like we don't have the fundamentals down. Not everybody's saying the same thing. You can put new messaging in place. You can put guidelines around it, and you can train your team on how to do it. And that does not cost money. You as a marketer can probably do that. Could you spend money on it? Sure, but you don't have to. Okay, so maybe I have some money, or that's okay, but what if I don't have any time? So I know this is the case for a lot of you. We're all running ragged. I'll tell you the same thing. I tell everybody, you've just got to prioritize. And once you know what's working and not working, you can make better decisions around prioritizing, right? So the message to leadership might be, hey, you're wanting me to do all this stuff. I really need to put emphasis here, and we're doing okay here. But if I could do this, if I could do X more, then it would look like this. And if I didn't have to do Y so much, I'd have more time for that. So help you paint that picture, and really help showcase or give a visual for what that could look like. Yeah, there may also be one thing here, some efficiencies with technology. So if you don't have time, but you maybe do have some budget, are there things you're doing over and over again that technology could help solve, or automation could help solve? So this is a good opportunity to kind of go, okay, well, I don't have time. How can I make time? What am I doing over and over that I really shouldn't be doing? How do I convince my boss to invest in needed changes? Okay, so there may be something that's come, like say your user experience is not good on your website, and you know this, and you get complaints about it all the time. You as a marketer may not be able to update your website and make those choices and understand how to, make your user experience better. You may need to hire somebody for help with that. How do you convince your boss to help you do that? Let your numbers paint the picture. So again, where you're not doing well, what could your org, where your score is low, what could things look like if it was high? So when we think about websites specifically, I would start thinking about, if my website's not good and my main goal for my website is to get donations, what can I do to increase my donations on my website? And what would that look like to your boss? So there's an investment there, but there's also a return. For things that are working, what could look like if you did more of that? And then what's the cost of doing nothing? So what happens if we just stay where we are? What does that cost in the long run? And then also for your boss or your board or whatever that looks like, understand what motivates them. Is it fundraising? A lot of times it's fundraising. So if it's fundraising, like, okay, how can you wrap those changes around what it will mean for fundraising? Or maybe it's your reputation in the community, driving impact. That's important to all of us, but where did their particular motivations lie? And then for some of you, if you're at a big organization, you may not have control over your technology platforms. We have a client that's part of the University of Texas, a nonprofit, part of the University of Texas. If you want to donate to them, you have to donate through the main University of Texas website, and the dropdown has hundreds of options. It's not a good scenario, but they're not in control of that. So ask yourself, there's not a lot I can tell you to do here, except if you know who your technology teams are, share the results with them. If you don't really have access to the technology team, think about the things that you can affect. You can affect the technology used on your social media probably, or speaking, or even print. Like, think about how to get around it in other ways. Okay, real quick plug. Mighty Citizen is in the middle of a 3-part series called Mightier Marketing in 1, 2, 3. So right now it's September, oh Lord, is it 29th? In my mind, it's already January because we are deep in our planning for 2023. I imagine a lot of you are too, or you're headed that way. We want to help you get set up for 2023. The Mighty GPS is a great way to do that because it's going to, tell you where your strengths and opportunities lie, and then you can emphasize those in your planning. if it makes sense, in 2023. So we've already done the first one. And actually that's what you're seeing right this minute. So you're seeing number 1 in the series. Number 2 in the series is next Thursday. It's all about digital strategies, what's coming, especially around Google Analytics and Google Analytics 4 that's coming next summer. And then the last one's how to build your 2023 communications plan. I've noted the importance of a written communications plan. We have a template for that. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it to prepare for 2023. So you can get those at mydecision.com/webinars123. Thank you. We also have a link, mydecision.com/maturity. You can get the slides, the white paper, the planner, the GPS is linked there as well. And then, of course, you can go to the mydgps.com and take the assessment. Again, 100% free. That's it, Josh. Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute. You're on mute. Yes, I was on mute. Oh, Rachel, this is fantastic. I know I learned a ton here. I'm sure our audience picked up some really great advice here. We did have a couple questions. Where did it go? Here we go. So, but before we do that, I did want to mention that Rachel's provided a lot of ways to reach out to Mighty Citizen. We're going to give you one other opportunity, which is we're going to fire up a final poll here, which is just going to ask the simple question if you'd like additional information. So if you'd like additional information from Rachel and Mighty Citizen, go ahead and indicate that. If you'd like additional information from Bloomerang, let us know. If you'd like to hear from both of us, feel free to reach out, and our team members will be following up and on that poll. So with that, I will move over to questions. And the first one was from Eliza. And that question was, does the Google Ad grant count as part of the marketing budget?
Yeah. Okay, so I would not, when I say spend, I mean money you are spending out of your organization's pocket. So I would not include Google Ad spend. I would let that be on its own. Because again, it's free money. For people that aren't familiar, Google gives you money to post ads if you're a nonprofit.
They do.
Usually.
And then Dawn reached out and asked, what does building personas mean?
Yes. Okay, so personas are basically representations of your audience. I'll give you an example. You could create a persona for any type of audience, but most nonprofits have several donor personas. You have the lapsed donor potential persona. You might have a dedicated donor persona, major gift persona. There's lots of ways you could slice and dice your audience, but it's taking a sliver of your audience and saying, what motivates that person? What does that look like? What content do they care most about? Because again, your motivate or like your dedicated donor is really different from like a one-time donor. And so they have different things that concern them. They need different content. So a persona basically creates a little picture of what that person cares about, that type of audience cares about. Hope I answered that.
I think that's a really good.
Okay.
Yeah, nicely played. Sarah, we have another one here. Sarah, so we're going back on Google Ads. So Sarah mentioned, do you manage your Google Ad grants yourself? And so that would be, I think, more for your clients.
Yeah.
Rachel, and then, or she went on to say that she found that it was very difficult to manage internally, and so a consultant is needed, and then so there's like added cost there, which
that is often the cost of free Google Ads. We have some clients that definitely run it themselves. We have some clients we have managed it for them. I will say unless you feel pretty tech savvy, it is difficult to manage it yourself because Google is constantly changing things. I say constantly, it's not that constant. It's not like Facebook, but, and they warn you.
They're both always changing. It feels like.
You have to stay on top of it in order to maximize those dollars. So for a lot of people, they'll ask me about Google Ad grants, and I'm like, unless you have somebody that can run it or you have budget to like hire somebody to run it for you, it's almost not even like, why get the money if you can't actually use it?
Right. I think another thing is to look for a volunteer, right? There might be a marketer, right, who can help advise. And some of it is can be a little bit set it and forget it. But you do need to check it, with a decent amount of regularity to really optimize it. Although, it's free, so there's also that piece of it. Cool. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. Rachel, it was such a pleasure. We always love working with you and the team over at Mighty Citizens. So
Thank
this
you.
was really a special treat. And then, as a marketer myself, I always love geeking out on this stuff. So when we have a marketing topic, I always try and pick that one to be able to host it from the Bloomerang team. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, awesome. Well, y'all, we do these webinars every Thursday afternoon. So please feel free to check out our website at bloomerang.co. You can go to the resources section on the header, and you'll find all of our upcoming webinars. We have a number of really great ones coming up here as we head into giving season. So feel free to check those out. And until next time, have a wonderful day and happy fundraising, and take care, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye, Rachel.
Bye.